Welcome to the Mystic Media Channel. I'm your host, Rabita Rastaban, aka the Realist Astrologer. And this is going to be a brief astrological case study on Lowell Hawthorne, who was the founder and CEO of Golden Krust. Now, Golden Krust, I'm just going to read a little bit about the background of this Caribbean bakery and grill. Golden Krust Caribbean Bakery and Grill. Golden Krust Caribbean Bakery and Grill is a Caribbean cuisine fast food chain and manufacturer and distributor of Caribbean food products based in Brooklyn, New York City. Now, before I read on, I'll just explain my rationale for doing this case study. So last night, I was watching one of those episodes of Undercover Boss, and it was in my suggested videos list. So I saw that it was Golden Krust. So I was like, oh, let me watch this. Because usually I don't watch that show. But I know a little bit about Golden Krust. I know that they were a Jamaican eatery and that they're famous for their Jamaican beef patties. So I was like, oh, let me take a look. So I went to the comments section and I found out that the founder and CEO, Lowell Hawthorne, is dead, and he died December 2nd, 2017 from apparent suicide. So that's what prompted me to do this astrological case study on him. So let me just read on. The parent company is owned by immigrants from Jamaica, and the stores are franchised. There are over 100 Golden Krust restaurants operating in 10 U.S. states: New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Florida, Maryland, North Carolina, Massachusetts, and Texas. There are also restaurants in Canada. The majority of the restaurants are situated in New York. The company also distributes food products to retailers and is considered the foremost Jamaican business in the United States. It is also the only company that makes and distributes 9 varieties of Jamaican-style patties. History. Golden Krust origins trace back to a 50-year-old bakery owned by Ephraim Hawthorne in St. Andrew, Jamaica, that serves family recipes. Ephraim's son, Lowell Hawthorne, Golden Krust's former president and CEO, opened the first U.S. restaurant in 1989 on Gun Hill Road in the Bronx. To open its first restaurant, the Hawthorne family pulled $107,000 using the Caribbean concept Susu, whereby everyone pitched in $100 a week to raise startup money after banks refused them a loan. Jamaican's ambassador to the United States was present for the opening of the chain's 5th store in Atlanta, Georgia. The parent company later became involved in the financial services industry. Hawthorne came to New York in 1981 and graduated from Bronx Community College before working as an accountant with the New York Police Department for 9 years. 9 brothers and sisters are involved in the family business. Lowell Hawthorne was found dead of an apparent suicide on December 2nd, 2017, age 57, inside a Golden Krust factory in the Bronx. His death was mourned by many, including former employees, colleagues, and Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Hawthorne was previously featured on CBS reality television show Undercover Boss in 2016. So that's why, that's the episode that prompted me to do this case study. So let me just read from the New York Post about his death before I get into his chart. Golden Krust CEO killed himself over tax debt, fears of probe. And here he is right here. Pretty looking man. And on the Undercover Boss episode, he seemed like a decent guy just on the surface. And he seemed like he really cared about his company, and especially like even his employees. Like he wanted to make sure that they, were doing well and that they had everything they needed in order to be efficient at their work. I remember he was talking to this one female in particular at one of the locations in the Bronx, I think. And she was talking about that she just got her nursing degree, but she was still working there and stuff. And he was making it seem like he was going to try to make sure she had some type of nice position within Golden Krust or whatever. Like basically, he was going to make sure that she was going to be okay while she was working there. But anyway, let me just read this article. The founder of the Golden Krust Jamaican beef patty empire killed himself amid fears the feds were investigating him for evading millions of dollars in taxes, the Post has learned. A family member told detectives that Lowell Hawthorne, 57, admitted the huge tax debt to some of his relatives and was acting funny and talking to himself in the hours before his suicide, a law enforcement source said Sunday. Surveillance video shows the meat pie mogul shooting himself in the head at his office inside the Golden Krust Bakery and warehouse in the Bronx, said the source, who was briefed on the NYPD investigation into the shooting. Now, some people are speculating that it wasn't a suicide, he was murdered, but if there's surveillance video of him shooting himself in the head, then, I mean, that's as close as you can get to proof of a suicide. So I'm going to look into his chart to see perhaps what led him to suicide. Before the shooting, the video shows Hawthorne speaking with a pair of workers who left the room, both of whom were crouched down, when they later returned to his office, sources said. It was unclear if they saw Hawthorne kill himself, but one of them could be seen making a cell phone call, which a source said was to 911. Hawthorne employed dozens of relatives at the business he started in 1989, and the source said he left a note in which he apologized to his family. Hawthorne's younger brother, Milton Hawthorne, 55, met cops who arrived at the Gold at 950 Park Avenue around 5:15 p.m. Saturday in response to a 911 call about an emotionally disturbed person armed with a gun, sources said. Lowell, a married father of 3 sons and a daughter, was found on the floor of his office with a single bullet wound to his head and a handgun lying nearby, sources said. The Jamaican immigrant started Golden Krust with a single fast food eatery on East Gun Hill Road in the Bronx and opened 16 more across the city before launching a franchise operation in 1996. I'm just going to stop reading right there, and I'm going to get into this chart. I was able to find his birthday by Googling Lowell Hawthorne, date of birth. So he was born May 1st, 1960. That makes him a Taurus. He only has his son in Taurus, but that's enough for someone to open up a chain of restaurants because, you know, Taurus deals with food, and Taurus also rules the restaurant industry. So also, Cancer is the chef of the zodiac. And Cancer and Taurus, they both deal with food, but I always consider Taurus to be the baker of the zodiac. So it's interesting that he wrote a book called The Baker's Son. I believe that's what it's called. So that explains the title of this video, The Death of a Baker's Son. So his son, I don't know what time he was born, but his son could be at the 10th degree of Taurus, and that makes a lot of sense considering the fact that he was able to fund his business via the Susu tradition, which, as Wikipedia stated, the Susu tradition is basically this network of Jamaican individuals that pool their resources together because, you know, if they can't get a loan from a bank or whatever, and that's how they can open up businesses and buy property and whatnot. So his son at the 10th degree of Taurus can point to that. So I'm thinking actually he was born around this time because when I saw his face, I immediately thought Aquarius. So I was like, he's an Aquarius rising. And that would make a lot of sense considering the fact that he committed suicide, because that would put his Mars in the first house at the 22nd degree. And his Mars is conjoined to his Pisces South Node. And that right there can manifest as someone who takes their own life, especially because they are experiencing a tremendous sense of guilt or regret or shame. And I think that's exactly what led to his suicide, because again, that Pisces influence, especially the Pisces South Node on his Mars, that can deal with him, you know, engaging in some shady business practices because his Mars and South Node are opposed to that Virgo North Node. And that Virgo North Node means in this lifetime, that's good for him working in the restaurant industry, but or having a business in the restaurant industry, but it also means that he's supposed to walk the straight and narrow in this lifetime. But with his Mars and Pisces conjoined to his Pisces South Node, he's very much inclined to do things in a secretive manner, to do things in a deceptive manner. And it could be people that are coaxing him or even pressuring him to do that manner. And he was surrounded by network family members, as well as you got to also think about the Susu network that he was part of as well. So Mars and Pisces can produce a person that is rather weak-willed, that can succumb to outside pressure rather easily. So it did come out that basically there was a class action lawsuit out because there was a bunch of workers that worked overtime and he didn't pay them what they were due. So I'm thinking that probably more so than the tax bill was the source of tremendous shame, because it's all good and well for someone with this hookup, this Pisces Mars conjoined to his Pisces South Node. It's all good and well to deceive people as long as you're not caught. But when you get caught, that's when you might be filled with so much shame and humiliation and guilt that you do in your life. Like he has a classic chart of someone who commits suicide as a result of being caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And then as a result of feeling like there's no way out, they feel this tremendous source of shame and guilt. And then they just take their own life because they can't deal. Someone with that hookup, Mars and Pisces, conjoined to the Pisces South Node, can make it very hard for them to deal with harsh realities. So I'm thinking when they said that, he was acting weird and I forget the word that they use, but basically he was acting strange before he committed suicide. He could have took some drugs or something, maybe he was very drunk at the time, or I'm thinking he might have took some pills or whatever like that. And, that contributed to him just taking his own life because he wasn't in his right mind. Now, the interesting thing, though, is I was watching this interview with him, and he had mentioned that back when he was 48, he suffered a major brain hemorrhage. And that right there can point to his Mars being conjoined to his South Node in the first house, because Mars rules the brain. So that can point to that brain hemorrhage. And maybe that was a contributing factor in him losing his mind, so to speak. His Mars and South Node are also in sesqui square to his Neptune, so that can also deal with him losing touch with reality. It can also deal with him basically being a victim of his own circumstances. It can also represent him deceiving people out of money because Neptune is in Scorpio. It also points to him being in bondage in terms of taxes. So yeah, he had it pretty bad. And again, that Neptune influence, which acts very much like Pisces, reinforces what I said about him not being able to deal with the harsh realities of a situation, especially once the truth comes to light. Now, if you notice, his Mars and his South Node are both at the 22nd degree. That 22nd can bring situations involving sudden death and also tragic death, and death where, it has you scratching your head. 22nd degree is rather challenging because I always say it's either about where you're in situations where either you are in control or others are controlling you. So it's either you have two options, and rarely it's ever anything in between. So it's either control or be controlled. He had Mercury and Aries conjoined to his Venus, which can cause him to be rather selfish when it comes to money. So that could have been a contributing factor in him basically not paying his employees that were working overtime what they were due. Let me see what else he had. He had Chiron opposition Pluto in Virgo, and that is another aspect that can point to him deceiving his workers, his employees. Virgo rules employees. And then Pluto is about money that is owed. So that is another contributing factor. And maybe that triggered him to resort to taking drugs or with some engaging in type of escapist behavior as a result of him being found out. He had Cancer moon, and that points to the family influence, him also being an owner of restaurants. His moon is opposed to Saturn, which points to him being part of a family business, but that also points to him being under a lot of pressure, perhaps by elders in his family or people that were on the business level, maybe the board of directors even, regarding some of the decision making in terms of business. This can also point to he was prone to serious bouts, and I'm talking about serious prolonged bouts of depression. Now, when you see him in, on Undercover Bosses, when you see him in a few interviews, he seemed like a pretty upbeat, gregarious and friendly guy, but people can mask depression really well. And, those could have been times where he wasn't suffering from depression. But that moon opposition Saturn could definitely point to that. It also points to him immigrating to the United States. And he had a hard time leaving Jamaica, he said in this one interview. He was a DJ when he was in Jamaica, and that points to his Mars and Pisces conjoined to his Pisces South Node. What else did I learn about him? Let me see. He also supplied penal systems with his Jamaican patties. So that points to that Mars Pisces conjoined to his Pisces South Node. He might have had a past life of being a prisoner. Let me see what else he had going on. He has Sun trine Saturn, which is really good for business, especially since his Sun was in Taurus, Saturn in Capricorn. So he really had no choice but to become an entrepreneur and be about that big business. He had moon opposition Jupiter. That also points to him immigrating to the United States. And that points to the influence that his family wielded over him. And he might have felt like he didn't have much freedom. And it makes a lot of sense because his father started the bakery business. And basically his father was the one who told him to go into the bakery business. So it was like he really didn't have any freedom when it came to choosing his own career path. So this happens quite a bit with family businesses where the children feel forced to take on the reins of their parents with respect to a family business, but that may not necessarily be what they really want to do. He does have Mercury and Aries and quincunx to that North Node in Virgo, so maybe he did. Like I said, he said he had a hard time dealing with the fact that he had to immigrate to the United States because he was really enjoying his life in Jamaica. He was enjoying being a DJ and stuff like that. So maybe, especially with that Mars and Pisces, that could produce a person that really doesn't want much out of life in terms of material success. So the pressure of being the big time businessman, especially when you take the Susu network into account, because it's like you owe them after they've helped out. It's like it doesn't end. You still continue, got to pay into the network and stuff. So if he is found that he is owing a lot of money, and then if he's found that he was engaging in shady business practices, he not only has to answer to his employees and whoever's involved in the business, but he also has to answer to these members of the Susu network. So you got to think about that as well. He has Sun opposition Neptune. Sun opposition Neptune can produce a person that is suicidal at various points in their life, because again, this is another aspect that could point to challenges with dealing with the harsh realities of life, especially because his Neptune is in Scorpio. That is one of his suicide aspects. So again, he felt like the walls were closing in on him. And again, that Scorpio deals with money that he owes. But again, I feel like it wasn't so much about the taxes, but the money that he owed to his employees. Because I really believe deep down inside, he tried to do what's right, maybe I'll say 50% of the time. But because of that South Node in Pisces conjoined to his Mars, like I say, he was naturally inclined to be deceitful, to be a thief, and to harbor a lot of secrets. Now, there was other rumors that came out that was speculating that he committed suicide because he was being extorted by someone because he was secretly gay, and someone was extorting him for money, basically saying that they were going to come out and reveal that information. Now, that could be true, especially with his Mars in Pisces. Not saying the extortion part, I'm saying where he could have been secretly gay. I'm saying because he had Mars conjoined to his Pisces South Node. Mars and Pisces alone can point to where you're confused about your sexuality or where you have something to hide about your sexuality. And he had Mars in Sesame squared to Neptune, which pretty much says the same thing. So, and if I'm right about his birth time, he would have Libra intercepted in the 8th house, but, and Gemini on the 5th with Mercury and Aries, and that can point to an attraction to men. But like I said, I don't believe, let's say that he was secretly gay. I don't believe the rumors about the extortion thing with him being gay and that leading to his suicide. I more so believe, like what I said about, no, it was the fact that he was cheating his employees out of money that they earned through overtime work. And when that came to the surface, because he tried to paint himself as this really good guy, he was even providing scholarships to a lot of students and stuff like that. And the thing is with that Mars and Pisces, that can make him very charitable. But again, because his Mars is at the 22nd degree, that can, also there's something abnormal or not right about his mode of operation. So you got to take that into account, where he was naturally charitable, but at the same time, he could have had his hand in both pots, if you understand what I'm saying. So I just thought that was interesting, but I don't believe the rumors about basically them saying him being extorted and that's why he committed suicide. I believe, again, that it was due to him owing his employees, because that's another thing with Mars and Pisces. That shame can really do them in. And in him painting himself to be this type of hero and this great guy, and then when his cover is blown, that can really send him into deep depression. And then next thing you know, he's taking his own life. Now, he made this quote in this one interview that I thought was very telling. He said, "Vision without execution is nothing more than hallucination." Now, that to his Mars conjoined to his South Node, opposing his North Node in Virgo. So basically, he was verbalizing that configuration right there. But the hallucination part, I think, is very telling, because that Mars conjoined to his South Node can make him prone to hallucinate, whether via drugs or maybe it was due to that brain disorder that he had. So you also have to take that into account. The brain disorder perhaps really affecting his mental health. Let me just check out his asteroids real quick before I close out. But I think I pretty much touched on it a lot, or the bulk of it. One thing I wanted to point out, though, what made him really successful and rich was when he did the franchising, but also the distribution company. So that points to his Saturn being enshrined to his North Node in Virgo. Now, his Saturn, I forgot to mention, is at that 18th degree. 18th degree, like I said before, that can be a murderous degree, a very aggressive degree, a degree. When I say murderous, I mean, I'm even including if you do it to yourself. So it can be suicidal even. So that is very much a death degree, that 18th degree. Like I said, remember in Whitney Houston's video, she had her South Node at the 18th degree of Capricorn, and you know what happened to her. She was murdered. I'm speculating, but in Lowell Hawthorne's case, he committed suicide. But again, common denominator is that 18th degree, death. But let me look at his asteroids real quick before I close out. My software want to act stupid. Okay. I just want to see if he has anything on his Mars and South Node. There it is. Well, he has Lilith running parallel to his Mars. Wow. So he very much could have been either of course it would be bisexual if he had children and he has a wife. So that Lilith running parallel to his Mars, he very well could have been bisexual, and his Lilith is in Pisces as well. That could point to you keeping some of your sexual proclivities secret. He also has Mars running counter parallel to Isis. Isis is an asteroid that could point to an issue with one of your siblings, or your siblings, your relatives even. He had Mercury conjoined to Isis as well, so maybe he was facing a lot of pressure, or maybe him and his sibling were at odds, and that could have contributed to his depression and whatnot. He had Mercury conjoined to the asteroid Psyche, which reinforces what I said about his mental health. So, wow. And it could have also been, like I said, that network really affecting him facing pressure from that Susu network, but also his relatives. They said that he hired a bunch of relatives in his business. So he was responsible for a lot of people. And like I said, that Mars and Pisces could join to his Pisces South Node. That could be much. Oh my God, he has Sappho opposing Saturn. So Sappho's in Cancer is opposing Saturn in Capricorn. Remember I said 18th degree can also produce hypersexuality or just sexual themes, strong sexual themes. Can make someone very carnal. So that reinforces the speculation of him being bisexual. Wow, this is really. Okay. So that's basically, so let me know what you think in the comment section. I thought this was a very interesting story. Because, of stature, what he had accomplished. So when someone of this stature commits suicide, you often have to ask why. But that's that. So if you could go on my site at rabina.com and stay tuned for more videos. Peace and many blessings.